Are you interested in the all-new generation of the Mercedes GLS? Here on Autogefuehl, we'll take you on a tour of the exterior, interior and the driving experience. As you know, in full HD, full screen and full length. Let's go! So now we go backwards. That's really steep.
Yeah,
Does that fit?
Steep, yeah.
Wow.
It's steep.
So that's how you'll let other cars pass by. Wow. That's impressive.
Really?
Everyone's starting to sweat now? In the front, the new GLS has not changed that much if you compare it to the predecessor. Still, it's very upright grille, a very strong appearance, but it already has a design approach with different design lines right here, especially on the hood. New is technology-wise that as standard you get the top multi-beam LED headlamps with 112 LEDs per unit. That's pretty impressive. Here also in the lower area you have a quite sporty look. The color here for today is Kevinside Blue. This is the darker blue tone. I would also prefer the Brilliant Blue, that is the lighter blue tone, and the one we would call Thomas Blue here on Autogefuehl. So what do you think here as a first impression of the new GLS? The new GLS is not only 2 centimeters wider, but also 7.7 centimeters longer. That's 3 inches longer. And now at 5 meters 20 or 205 inches in total. That's 28 centimeters longer than the GLE and also 14 centimeters longer in the wheelbase than the GLE. 6 and 7 seat is the main reason for that you have more space right there. Here you can see this very upright design we already know from the GLS. Then this impressive side step right there. And the wheel size is very interesting. It starts from 19 inch, goes to 20, 21, 22. Those ones here at our vehicle are also 22. And optional 23 inches. That's really massive. And then there are also 2 basic suspensions available. The Airmatic suspension, the air suspension is standard. And optional, you can get the E-Active body control. We already tested that one in the GLE. We also have it with our test vehicle today. It can lean into the corners, and it also has this special off-road function that it also can, go up and down, that you can, for example, get out of the sand. And it also has a predictive function that it always stays in the same level and lets the wheel work underneath it. Very interesting. We see how that one turns out in driving. Other than that, it's, rather a conservative design. Some dropping line right here above the door handles. In this case, the wheel arch is painted in the vehicle color. But I think, they try to give this very big SUV still an elegant touch. And I think they could also achieve that. Well, what's your take on that? It is one of the rare vehicles where I can still stand upright here in the rear perspective. Don't have to go down for that. Formatic means the all-wheel drive. This one is still a permanent all-wheel drive, also with a rear-wheel bias. This one here today is also the GLS 580. I'll soon tell you more about what that means when we get to the engine part. And so great that we didn't have a front number plate. We just need a rear number plate here, registered in Michigan. And there you just need the rear number plate because Michigan Mercedes has their headquarters then for the US. Then in the lower part, we got those beauty exhaust tips. The rear ones are on the inside and 4 exhaust tips overall here for this V8 model. The tail lamps, they have this distinct signature now. We see that in a new GLE, even in the small GLB now. You've recently seen it here also in Autogefuehl. If not, also tune into that episode. And the only thing I realized already with the BMW X7 is, here in this upper shape, it gets narrow in the top part, and this can look a little bit weird. It was really the same one for the X7. What's your take on that? Really looking forward to that. And another color variation here for you. This one is a Hyacinth Red Metallic. So a very strong red color. It's also very beautiful, I think, fits to the vehicle. And here you can also see how it looks like with those plastic crossover wheel arches for a more off-roadish look. Or do you prefer this one here in polar white? In white, cars tend to look bigger, don't they? What do you think? Here, in this case, also with 20-inch wheels, and I think that's just visually totally fine. It's enough, and you also get a little bit more comfort because you have more dampening than from the tire. So glad you guys joined us here today for our review from the north of Utah, near Salt Lake City. So last time we were in Utah, in the desert center, so to say. This time a little bit different, definitely from the landscape, but also very beautiful. And now to the engines. This one here is this V8 engine. And the interesting thing is, technology-wise, all petrol engines are now mild hybrid. So 48-volt board net. There's either the GLS 450, 3-liter R6 with 367 horsepower, or this one here, the GLS 580, a 4-liter V8 twin-turbo with 589 horsepower, 700 newton meters of torque. And then there's also a diesel side for the European customers, 350D, 3-liter R6 with 286 horsepower, or in the 400D with 330 horsepower. And that one then also has 700 newton meters of torque, so the stronger diesel, same torque figure than this V8 engine. Pretty interesting. The key, pretty light, slim, nice design. Would you like to hold one of these to be able to open the car? You can also do it here with the keyless entry, and also the mirrors flip in right there, or put your hand on the inside, then it goes out again. Door closing sound. Not convinced of that. Should be a little bit more sonorous, or what do you think? Then the red cover on the inside, and I like this matte wood styling here. And you can control the seats from here. Seat cooling seat heating available. Optional Burmester sound system, very decent sound, I really like that. Then also some space for bigger bottles right there. And then this interior is also again the matte wood styling right there. And then 2 times 12.3 inch screen. There you can see this black panel then overall. Soon more details to that, how it looks like. Steering wheel has been updated if you compare it to the predecessor generation. So you have the column here for the for the wipers and for the turning indicators, then for the adjustment of the steering wheel. And the Distronic went here onto the steering wheel. And the gear shifting column right there. The seats, you can see it right there, is all similar as we've seen in the GLE. And they are also available with Artico full leather red cover, also in different colors. That one would be my tip to keep it animal friendly. Those ones here are, however, at the moment the optional animal equipment, so a lot of €1,000 extra for that. We'll soon also test the comfort of the seat form in general. And another interior, this one here is the Artico seat or MBTEX, depending how the brand name is on the market. This one then is the leather red, so it's not from animal origin, the more animal friendly version, and it feels already quite soft, so it's very good material and also quite durable. And here we can also see a carbon fiber inlet as decor material, also continuing right over the rest of the interior. Ambient lighting, you can also pick different colors. They change like this. It's always very nice to see. Now let's get inside. Of course, you can also use this side step here, but I'm not sure if it's really that useful. Then, seating position is, as expected, very comfortable. It's not too different than from GLE, because they share the same parts here all the way in the front. What's my height? 1.86 m or 6'1". Subscribers will already know it, but we always have a lot of new time viewers. So, and that leaves still a lot of headroom right there, even though this one is already equipped with a panoramic roof. So, a lot of space here in the front and definitely upright, full-size SUV seating position. Really like that. Showed you earlier that you can control the steering wheel like this. And there's even in the infotainment system a special function where you just enter your size, and then it automatically sets the seat as, a normal person with that size would be seating. Then you can maybe fine-tune it a little bit. But it's actually a quite good function because most people sit too far behind and also too far leaned backwards. But it's important that you sit somewhat upright and also, of course not too close, but not too far away from the steering wheel, that you have, the possibility to turn the steering wheel all the way around and to be really able to hammer the brakes all the way, and not that your foot is all the way stretched and you don't have too much power. So, little driving, seating, setup lessons here for today. But definitely, I can also just sit here and relax a little while. Okay, we continue. Interior overview. You have a lot of elements, yes, but it's somewhere also clean enough, so to say. The top part here is soft touch right there. Hard pack on the front part and soft touch on the top part. Then again, this 2x12.3-inch setup here now turned on. Two separate screens, but they dissolve into one area. Then this new vent design, again with the matte wood area there. Climate unit with nice clicking. And it's good that you can still do it while driving. And here, when you put it on colder, you see there's a blue ambient light. And when you put it warmer, there's red ambient light. That's also a very nice feature. But you can also use the voice control to change the temperature, or to have the input, for example, for the GPS. Or there's also this perfume spender that is sometimes annoying me, and then I can just say, "Hey Mercedes,
how may I help you?
Deactivate the perfume."
I'm switching off the air freshener.
So that's a good example, because I would have no idea how to search that in the menu, where that is. And especially for those functions, you can just try the voice input, see if that works then. Other than that, with your right thumb, you can control the infotainment system, but it's also touch, so you can just do it like this. This works. Left thumb then would be controlling the instruments right there. And also the lower touchpad can control the infotainment system, so it's somewhat redundant. In the lower part here also you can slide this big cover open. Then you have the inductive charging pad, the direct smartphone connection for the Apple CarPlay or Android Auto, cup holders, which can also be heated or cooled. Then this touchpad, dynamic mode control for the driving modes, and controls for the air suspension. And last but not least, this armrest which flips open and offers even more charging possibilities and at least some more space. Now a closer look to the infotainment system. It's always nice to look at the GPS right here. It's quite responsive, shows a good route right here. My Salt Lake City. Need to zoom out just a little bit. Well, I could be a little bit more responsive. It always depends on the web connection too. There's Salt Lake City here and the Great Salt Lake. It's a very nice visualization. There you can get back to the home menu, for example. Phone you can connect via Bluetooth or with a cable then with Android Auto or Apple CarPlay. And there's a quick access then on the top part when you have connected this, and that's the integration, how it looks like. Or there you go back to the Mercedes menu. And then this is also always an interesting menu here with the settings, for example, because when you have turned on the engine then, there's also, here's this parking mode where it does the automatic parking. Then you can search for the parking spots, or you can also scroll or browse through different cameras here. Front, all the way around, rear, or also rear with a drone view from above. So, and of course when you put in reverse gear, then you always get to the rear view camera, and it's very good resolution. The digital instruments are clear to read, and you're also flexible because you can change the contents. You can also change the whole look. There's a trip information. You can also have GPS information in there. That comes also quite handy. And you can also change the whole design. That's always fun to play around with it. Let's go for the understated, for example. But I think, the so-called progressive looks somehow the coolest. Or some might also prefer the sport look. What do you say? The head-up display is a very important option, I think, and this is the best head-up display to see on camera. It still appears smaller, but in real life it is huge. I can tell it really. It's really directing the line of sight and really a very big visualization, so bigger than it would look now on camera, and very clear and crisp. For example, also with GPS information when you have a route running. A great build, interior quality we find. Besides, well, this very plain back mirror does not fit to the rest of the car. I think a frameless one would have been more elegant. Rear legroom test. So the legroom has been enhanced if you compare it to the predecessor by about 3.5 inches or 8.7 centimeters, and you definitely see that here. And that's also the big difference, GLS to the GLE. That's where the increased wheelbase is actually placed. If you now compare it, for example, to a BMW X7, those seats here, even though they are the captain seats, they are leaned a little bit backwards. That gives you a little bit more legroom, yes. But the captain seats in the X7, they're more like, you would be sitting like this a little bit more, no, more upright. I felt that it's more like an exclusive and, more comfortable seating position. So I think the captain seats in the X7 are better for traveling. However, the advantage here of those captain seats, they're still comfortable, of course, but compared on a high level, of course. So the biggest difference now is here. You can flip those captain seats, and that's not possible in the X7. So they are somewhat less exclusive, less upright, but this is a big advantage that even if you have the captain seat set up, if you pick that one, instead of the through bench, you can still flip all of the seats and have a good loading area. So it's definitely pro and contra. So what's clear is when I have the captain seat all the way back, I cannot sit in the last seating row. But now, here on this side, I've put the seat all the way front, maximum in the front, and also a little bit steeper. So that way I could still sit here as a tall adult. But now, can I still fit behind that? That's the real question. When you have the captain seat set up, usually you would say you have it easy and just use this middle tunnel and go from here then to the very rear. So that works. And it's also easy, and I think also, especially the kids will just enjoy that. It's somehow like a fun feature. And yeah, I have to squeeze my right leg a little bit in. My left leg, you see here, I can put to the middle part here. So yes, I can sit here as a tall adult. Headroom is no problem at all, by the way. So it does work for 6 or 7 adults, yes, but in a somewhat limited way on the third seating row. So better, for example, for children that are older or, taller, that they don't need the real extensive child seat anymore, but not that tall yet. Or the alternative, they thought about the ISOFIX in the last seating row, so you can also use it for child seats, for example. And the last seating row also on each side has 2 more USB-C devices, by the way. Very interesting. So that would be one way to access it. If you have the bench that goes all the way through, that's not possible. Therefore, there is another function. It's also equipped here, but just on the co-driver side. There's a button right here, and it only works when the car is properly powered. Then you can also flip the seats. Let's show you that. So I did not have to turn on the engine, but just activate the second ignition step from the start-stop button in the front, and then this one here is also powered. This button, again, this is available with the, that looked a little bit weird, with the seating bench that goes all the way through, and here also with the captain seat, but only available for this one here. So you always have to access it from the co-driver side. So yeah, that also somewhat works if you don't want to climb in through the rear, like this. Here we go. Yeah, that's fairly easy. But I think, you know, when you have the captain seat, it's just more fun to climb through the middle, isn't it? I mean, we're all children in our heads at some point, you know. So, and then you sit here, and then you can also click that backwards again. Let's see. Yeah, that one you have to hold then for safety reasons, that no one is squished. Yeah, exactly. You have to keep holding it. Watch your feet. There we go, and then it goes in again. And yeah, you see, it does, you know, somewhat exactly work. Not too plenty, but you know, it's still decently comfortable in here. I can also show it again from this perspective when I slide to the front, and I have now put the other captain seat on this side, also to the very front position. Then you can see again how I fit in here. Yes, that's Thomas' workout here today. Always when we have 7-seater cars, here, you know, right knee here, left knee a little bit squeezed in. But I mean, shorter route I could also survive in here. And if you're a little bit smaller, in this case you also have an advantage. And some more amenities here, cup holders for the rear passengers. Then you have a separate climate unit if you want a 4-zone SC. There we go. And there's also seat heating for the rear available, by the way. And in the lower part, there we go. There are, it takes a while, 2 more USB-C devices and a real power plug, but it's hard to access it right there for a laptop charger or so. It's probably too narrow. And the headroom here in the rear is also good. That works very well. Again, an advantage when the seating surface falls a little bit backward. And here you also have the overview, this greenhouse, so to say, with a huge panoramic roof. So great view, especially from the rear. Well, then it doesn't get too hot. Of course, the glass has a layer in it, but you can also close the shade right here. So, and then for really, really hot days, you can also close it off, that it stays a little bit cooler here. Seat heating is right there for the second seating row. And here, that would be a spot where you could put an 11.6-inch tablet. We've shown you that also on the motor show if you're interested in that. And then when you have the bench option for the middle part, you can also get another 7-inch control tablet, so to say, to control some or more of the functions. But, you know, I think with the BMW X7, you had this compromise. You have to think about, do I go for the captain's seats for the ultimate comfort, but I lose the flexibility with the trunk? Yet again, yeah, they're a little bit cooler, those captain seat. But here, you decide between the captain seat and the bench, and you can fold it all the way flat in the same time. So I think that this car really makes, so to say, only sense with the captain seat. You have this nice 2-2-2 setup, you can climb through the middle tunnel, and you don't lose any flexibility. So that's somehow more special here with the captain seat setup. Or what's your take on that? Please comment if you would take this one here as a 6-seater or as a 7-seater. So it says that its maximum loading capacity is 2,400 liters or 83 cubic feet. But what does that mean? So first of all, we can also open it with the foot kick open mechanism, otherwise under the logo or with the key. That's the setup here when the last seating row is up. And you can see this is also why it's a GLS and not a GLE. With a GLE, if you have that third seating row option with a GLE, you hardly have any space left. Here, still possible to store some stuff. And the length actually at about 55 centimeters. You also have this small storage right here. You can have a cover even for the last part, but that's not really that necessary, I think. So, and then you can also put luggage in here. Does that even work with the cabin trolley? Let's try that. I'm not exactly sure, but it could. No, doesn't do that. So now we have to put it right. Ah, there it goes. So that way you can put the trolley like this, for example, or also, you know, like this. Also, that would also work. And then what's also interesting is the width right here, which is pretty significant. 1.20 meters here in the last area. And now, here on the right side, I can lower the vehicle a little bit because of the air suspension for loading in a little bit easier. That works. And then you can here on the right side put down the 3L and 3R for third seating row left and right. When you hold that one, let's see, we just have to, no, just press once and then there we go. And that one flips down. And on the other side, we have the same for the second seating row. Just press them once. Here we go, and then those captain seats fold all flat. That's pretty cool. So the trunk length up to the captain seat, that one would be about 1.20 meters. And then all the way to the seats as we would be driving as adults. That's massive. That's more than 2 meters. Wow. That's like 2.25 meters. That's really, really massive. Pretty cool. And there is also a button for the vehicle available. That's the button that is blind here at the moment. This one here. And when you have that option, then you can also fold it all the way flat, just with one button, and all seats go down at the same time. And in this vehicle we have the bench that goes all the way through, in contrast to the captain seats. And you can see the outside parts are somewhat similar to the captain seats. That's very interesting. Let me just take a seat right there, if it's any different. And yeah, I mean, indeed, it doesn't feel too different from sitting in a captain seat. So that's not the biggest difference. Here, of course, the question is, what about the middle seat? And this works quite well. So you can see here the all-wheel drive tunnel is not too high actually, and yeah, I mean, it's not too stiff, this bench here. You can actually pretty well sit here also on the middle seat, so that's actually quite good. So we hardly have any cars where you can feel quite comfortable in the middle seat here in the second seat row. But in this case here, that also works. So that again might be a reason to go for this setup. But of course, still this 6-seater setup also has, you know, a lot of charm. And in this vehicle here, with the bench that goes all the way through, we also don't have this blind knob anymore. We also have this all button, and this is just available for the bench system. So then you push it in, and then just with one click, all folds flat. You know, they use a different mechanism for the captain seat setup. That's why they couldn't offer it there. But still, I mean, if you make it available for this one here, I think you should also make it available for the captain seat setup. Then with one click again, we can also have it fold all the way up. This is of course a very cool function to give you the maximum loading capacity. Again, that might speak again then for the through bench setup of this car. By the way, the towing capacity is about 3,500 kilograms, so about 7,000 pounds, and for example, you can tow something like that. So, short demonstration of the new trailer assist. That's very interesting. Put in reverse gear, then press parking button in center console to start. You see here we have this boat load right here, and then at the moment the car would just keep this trailer in a very straight line. And the thing is now I can adjust actually where the trailer should be going to. That's very interesting because, you know, otherwise I would always need to counter steer. You know, when you want to move the trailer to the right, you would need to steer to the left, and that's really hard to imagine then how it can do what. So, and as soon there's now like a predestined spot. See those cones right there? That's really interesting. And now I want to move the trailer inside those cones. And so I use my finger here on the screen and I move this green line inside to the cones. So, and now I can also adjust a little bit right there. See here, that I get a little in there, a little bit more exact. When I see it's not going the right way. Here again, so sometimes it depends on like how you're going in, that you have to readjust the list just a little bit. But it's definitely a big help because you see what the steering wheel does. And I'm not really sure, I mean, I don't have any exercise with that. Here maybe I can just correct the very last time just to be very precise. I have no experience in moving those trailers in a very exact way. And so this really helps me then to get inside those cones. Also, I mean, I cannot really see those right cones. Maybe when Holger looks out of the window, how does it look like?
Yeah, it's okay.
That looks good, yeah?
Yeah.
So the only thing I do is actually releasing the brake. Maybe I can correct a little bit more to this side here.
Too much difference here.
And then yeah. So like maybe like this. I'm not touching any cone on the right.
No.
Looks good. It's good, yeah, yeah. It's just yeah. Now I'm just gentle releasing the brakes. That's the only thing I actually do. So that's it, and now we're inside. Welcome to Thomas's Driving Lounge with the all-new Mercedes GLS. And we're going to tell you how is it different from the GLE in driving, how is it different to this new competitor, the BMW X7, and how is it different from the predecessor GLS generation. I think those are the three main questions. And of course all the different driving aspects in different driving situations. And already when you're driving slow, you realize it's a super silent feeling and you have this upright, comfortable seating position. You really feel like being king of the road. But again, not in a bad or super arrogant way, because you rather enjoy, relax. You don't feel the urge to drive fast, even though we do have the V8 here under the hood at the moment. So you can have it at a very low RPM. And we not only have the air suspension, which is like really offering this air carpet ride, so definitely an air suspension that does offer that. Nowadays so many air suspension are tuned into a very harsh way to be sporty. They didn't do it here, and I like that. But then I already want to show you that right now, because that's one of the highlights, the E-Active Body Control. This one here has, you can pick it here in driving mode, the so-called curve mode, and then the car is evening out the G-forces, so to say, by, let's say, playing a motorcycle. And so the car leans in the corner a little bit, and it is somewhat a strange feeling when you're doing, even just a small slalom, because you might also pick it up here on the camera. The car is not tilting to the side, although it has an air suspension. So that's here with the curve mode. And now with comfort mode, which is the softest mode, let's do that again. And there you can see. Do you see it? We definitely, and I also see Holger next to me like, vroom, vroom, vroom. Did you feel the difference?
Yeah.
So I think it's especially even more important to the co-driver, because here I can always hold onto the steering wheel to even out something. But here you could clearly see that in the normal comfort mode, car was leaning to the outside. And when you're going to this curve mode, the car's rather either staying upright or even leaning to the inside. So that's very interesting. And again, I think, oh, what's that? Like small mouse or something? So we have to pay attention here to some smaller wildlife as well. That's why I'm always going slow here, and we'll soon hit the highway, and then we can also go a little bit fast and also show you something of the acceleration. But this one here, we already had in the GLE, really helps. And This technology, together with the fact that when you have the turning circle, when you turn the wheels, it also, changes the angle a little bit. Then they said that they don't need rear axle steering. So that's a difference. For example, Audi or BMW, they do go for rear axle steering then to reduce the turning circle. However, then they do not have the same active suspension as they do here. So those ones are definitely different approaches to this whole suspension topic. Here also now interesting option for the MBUX system, this Augmented Reality. There you can see again this sign telling me where to go. The front camera gives me an image, and then in the front camera image there's this sign saying exactly go right there. I think it's a really good system when it's working. We had like some situations in Norway recently with the EQC where we had some intersections where it wasn't working, but my experience from all the roads that were mapped here in the US were so far pretty flawless. There again it is, and yeah, it's a pretty spectacular option, and sometimes it just makes it clearer. For example, now there's a route planned and it goes both ways because it's a circle, it's a round tour. Now I knew which one, so in which direction the round tour was beginning. Pretty interesting. So we can also test the sport mode. Then the RPMs are turned up higher. The car already shifts down a gear. And then we can show you something of the acceleration. I'll just let the car first roll. There's a speed limit of 65 miles here. And I'll go down to 30 miles and then hammer it. Let's see. Plop. And that was already 68 miles, so I had to reduce the speed now immediately again. That went quite quick, right? And also very harmonious acceleration, all-wheel drive, rear-wheel bias here, since it's a classic permanent all-wheel drive. The V8 does have some sound you could notice, yes. However, it is so well insulated from the cabin, and it's also not a car that has the approach of being super loud in the interior, that it wasn't that significant as for the sound. And here then, when you're cruising on the highway, you would rather go back to the comfort mode. Then when you have the E-Active Body Control, it's not only that it's somehow different in the curved mode, it is already active in the normal comfort mode. So the difference would be that the normal air suspension is really adapting in a way that, just the waves are evened out, that it's always going up and down. And when you have this E-Active Body Control, there's a camera scanning the road surface in front of us and calculating together with the speed, seeing what's coming ahead, and then the suspension goes in before the obstacle. So, like those old movies you've seen with this hydropneumatic suspensions by Citroën or something, that you go with the car even, just straight, and just the wheels are, whoa, that happened. Must have lost something from the truck or something. But you saw, there was a good steering input here, so I could react very well. So obviously also good steering feeling from this car. Always nice to test. Yeah, so back to the closing stage of this E-Active Body Control. Really interesting approach. Also that each individual wheel can be controlled, that you can also have like this going up and down when you want to get out of sandbox situations or something. It's also very interesting, definitely. So, and then on the left side here, you can activate the cruise control. Put it up to give it a little bit more speed. And now we're in the cruise control mode. And this head-up display is really so large, it's hardly, you cannot miss it. But it's still not too distracting actually. It's still okay, although it has a really decent size. Cruise control, of course, really important for staying on the motorway. I really like that. And it also has an active steering function. See here, I'm being kept on the middle of the lane. Of course, it's not intended to be used in the way I'm doing it right now, so please don't do that. Just showing it to you as a proof You should keep your hands at the steering wheel, where I do, but you should be in control all the time. But you can, let's say, relax maybe a little bit more, and of course never trust 100% in the systems. But so far the experience we had with the assistance systems by Mercedes, they're quite well done. They also have that when you're running through standing objects, some might fail there, and they are usually also doing very well on suddenly standing objects. That's also a very crucial point here. I'm not sure if you've already seen the blind spot monitor. There's like a red triangle in the side mirror. Maybe it has already flashed when someone overtook us. I didn't really catch it because I didn't pay attention to that in this case then. And when you hit the turning indicator, then it also flashes, that it gives you, let's say, an additional warning. Speed at the moment is 70 miles per hour. That should be about 115 kilometers, something like that. And again, it's a super relaxing ride. It's very silent. When you're going straight, it's also not too much of a difference if you're in a GLE or in a GLS. When it's really cornery, then you would feel that the GLE has a shorter wheelbase. But especially if you use this curve function of the E-Active Body Control, the difference diminishes even more. So it was the same I experienced with the X5 and the X7. When you're in the US especially, with big roads, big parking lots, it doesn't make such a difference. But when you're in Europe, then it's really more clever to stick with the X5 and also with the GLE, because that makes a bigger difference then. And of course, when you have more agile roads, then you also feel, something more. But in general, you can say, although this is a quite big car, it feels astonishingly agile. The same was also for the X7. But I really see the difference X7 and the GLS, that the X7 is set on a little sportier tone. The X5 is also even sportier than the X7, yes. But the GLS and also, the philosophy of Mercedes is always a little bit more on the comfort, whereas BMW always sets a little bit sportier tone, and this is also what we could realize with those vehicles. And the Audi was, like the Audi Q8, was somewhat in between, because it was also a great ride. So indeed, from all the cars we've been testing, the BMW X5, X7 group, or here then the GLE, GLS, and the Audi Q8, Q7, those are really, really on top of the game in so many different aspects at the moment. So you can't easily answer like, this is the best, this is the best. It always depends on the small nuances, and everyone has like their unique factors and so on, but they're all really very good cars, that's for sure. And to me, also one of the best at the moment. When there's some rain starting to pick up here. There's like one rain cloud here, interesting. Well, that's life here on Autogefuehl, I can tell you. Well, there's also telling me lane change to the left, lane change to the right. That means, see here, the car can also do that itself. Again, please keep your hand on the steering wheel. I'm just doing it right here for you, for the demonstration purpose, that you know it works and I'm not cheating anything. This when the windshield is very fresh and it's a really clean car, you don't even have to use the wipers. It just goes like this, just from the wind. And also take a look here at the at the landscape. There's a water reservoir here, also very interesting, and we'll have some more winding corners for you here pretty soon. So this one here is definitely a very, very good travel vehicle. If you ask me to the difference about the one before, the GLS was already a nice and comfortable vehicle, yes. Here it has become more agile to use, so it feels a little bit smaller, a little bit more agile, although it has become larger. Then this E-Active Body Control adds even more calmness when you're running over some waves. It sadly does not work with potholes. So it needs a certain amplitude in hertz to realize what's going on with this wave coming ahead. And that's obviously not working with potholes, but only with real waves you can see there. I'm not sure how often those situations do happen, but definitely brings more calmness in. Is it a must-have option? No. Is it a can-have option? Yes. So the normal air suspension, the Airmatic, will also do just fine. Yeah, I mean, definitely okay. And of course, a big difference to the GLS before that, the predecessor, is all of the infotainment system here. I really like the ability for the voice input. If I would suddenly say, oh, I need to change my destination, I need to go, oh, I want to deactivate this perfume donator, then I can use the voice control and let it do something. So this is rain shower is already over. Interesting. So infotainment and agility, I think this is the biggest difference to the predecessor. Design-wise, you can always argue which one is better now. Of course, they have changed something, not super much. And the interior build quality has been upgraded. That is also, something you also somewhat realize you picked it up while driving. When you, for example, set the temperature control here or something, that makes a more evolved feeling, definitely. So this is definitely when the size is not playing any role, one of the very, very good vehicles at the moment on the road. As for the fuel consumption, we had it cruise control, we were going a little bit downhill, but we also had this one acceleration in it, but that's also somewhat realistic that you do one acceleration out on the motorway and then you set the cruise control again, for example. And at the moment we're here at 25 mpg. And considering the size of the vehicle and the size of the engine, that's somewhat normal, I think. We follow that, of course. Before we give you the final conclusion, we'll drive a longer way even for you here. Oh, curve speed is 50 miles per hour. Do they want to tell us that we have to use the curve function? Maybe. But even that, by the way, the cruise control picked that up. Did it? I'm not sure. Maybe it was just that it's running the same speed as the truck. I can't say at the moment. But in general, it works also with traffic sign recognition. That's also a very helpful function. And it also prevents you massively from getting speeding tickets. So, shouldn't forget about that. So it's really such a calm and enjoyable ride right here. What about the steering itself then again? Let's get off here, because we need to go to the other side. And in these low degree areas, you somewhat feel, but you already know that something is happening. Brakes are also being applied quite well, although you feel then that's a heavy car. And probably this also the difference, of course, has more weight than the GLE. And in braking, this is probably the one thing where you realize it most. Here again, the augmented reality, direction of Salt Lake. So when you're hammering the brakes, the GLE indeed feels lighter. Never forget physics, so this whole weight has to be reduced in speed at some point. Then you always should drive even more defensively when you know that you're driving a big vehicle. Another example was, for example, the Cadillac Escalade, which I had recently, and I was hoping, expecting more of that. It's already a very old car now in this generation, and it was really not performing, especially in the driving agility. And if you compare it now to the GLS or the X7, and that had nothing to do with like Germany versus US, because I couldn't care less where the car is getting built. This one here is a American car, It's a German brand, yes, but it's built in US, so just to stress again that we do not care about any country bias or something. But the Escalade can definitely not keep up with the performance here. The X7 again, or the GLS, they're both so well executed in a lot of different aspects. It's really the question. So spontaneously, I would say that the X7 is maybe a little bit more fun to drive, has a little bit more natural driving feeling, whereas the GLS has more comfort, especially with this setup of the air suspension. That would be, to me, the most crucial difference. And of course, the different philosophy with the captain's seats, which I went in depth then also in the interior part. That's also very interesting differentiation there. I mean, why not having a differentiation right there? So even if you are in this curve mode and you have somewhat a special sporty feeling for that, it is not a very natural sporty feeling because this suspension movement is somewhat artificial, you know what I mean? But nevertheless, it's very interesting. With the GLE, I had some moments where I said, maybe I deactivate it now because it's feeling pretty weird or so. I'm looking forward now when we enter some more countryside roads, how I feel that when being in the GLS, and if I need the urge to deactivate it, or if I rather say, like, you know, let's go with it all the way. Here in the motorway, it doesn't make so much sense. And definitely what I feel with the difference E-Active body control to the normal air suspension, again, it's also because we just had some waves. It is a soft air suspension ride, but usually you would have more like this going up and down, and it's a little bit like you are in a cradle. It's somewhat a cool feeling, yes, but here you definitely feel that it is soft, but the car is really keeping itself even straighter, and you feel that the suspension is just working almost independently underneath you. That's also a very interesting aspect. So this all about with some acceleration, we had some about the noise insulation, also the assistance systems, suspension, then the comparison X7, GLE, and also predecessor. But now I'm really looking forward to hit it a little bit more in a countryside road and to get it some more active. So meanwhile we are down to about 22 mpg, which is still more a realistic figure, and we can like super fast here, but here we have no one in front of us, no one behind us, so we can also do a short acceleration from standstill for you. Let's see. Plop. That was 0 to 60 miles an hour. That went quite quick, didn't it? And also again, although it's such a heavy vehicle, due to the all-wheel drive distribution, was a quite harmonious ride still. But Holger did get a kick, like an acceleration. Like, as a co-driver, it's always funny, as a driver, in which moment you are hitting the throttle. But as for your co-passengers, yeah, you never know in the exact second. It's always funny to watch them. Yeah, now we let's do this curve mode again, because we have some more corners coming ahead. And here now again, this is like a very good example. So the car is rather leaning to the inside of the corner, and that reduces the G-force applied to the passengers. That's very interesting. So it's really a little bit like with a motorcycle, and experience that in a rather huge car is interesting. Now I'm quite fast, and wow, that's impressive. So usually when I would be in the normal, I'm not even driving any faster than the speed limit allowed that, but usually in those corners you would slow down maybe a little bit, and when you're in a normal air suspension mode you would really lean to the outside, so pretty cool. So I think here for the GLS this curve mode does even make more sense, because the car is heavier, even bigger, and then this suspension mode reduces this effect a little bit, that it's bigger and heavier, so to say. Very interesting. So also the canyon reservoir, very interesting. Some people also with the boats going around here. You can always see at those lower shorelines right there that this is not like a very natural lake that formed, so it looks different when the lake is all natural. This one here, you rather see that's more artificial, that that the water is held there with the dam. So now we're about 50 miles an hour here in the countryside. This one in front of us going a little bit slower, so we also have to adapt. And that's also something, with a big SUV you would maybe rather be the slower one, but in this case we are actually the faster one, also due to this curve mode. That's really spectacular. So let's go back to the comfort mode and see how that one turns out. So for example here now in this next one, where's this guy going? Yeah, you feel it directly. So what the hell? What's going on here? So either I should, let's overtake him or something, or we wait a little bit. So let's see. Here we go. So now we have clear road again. And in those situations it's quite good to have a power over this. Going over the middle lane once more. What the hell is that? Well, whatever. So, and I really like to switch from comfort to the curve mode just for you to test that a little bit. Here also at higher speeds. It's also interesting when you're going some slalom. And I see Holger next to me go like... So he's my test subject for today. So now, like here, he's also going a little bit right and left, but it doesn't look that randomly, like when you go in normal comfort mode, it looks like in the curve mode more like and I also feel it. So it's definitely a fun thing and something very unique as for technology, depending on how agile you really drive this vehicle. In general, as I said, it is so silent and so relaxing to drive, so you don't always do that. But still a key finding that even though this is the car where you at least expect some agile riding from, that this is still possible somewhat. And now we have some off-road driving for you. At the moment I'm still in the normal comfort mode because that also gives me most comfort when driving off-road. Here again in the V8 and also with the E-Active body control, because that's a very interesting fact for driving off-road. This suspension tries to put all the wheels to the ground, and therefore you also do not need any differential lock at the rear axle, for example, because you would need it when wheels off the ground and just spinning. But here, since the suspension keeps it all to the ground, you don't need it. That's very interesting. But there's still a mechanical longitudinal lock, so center differential lock, that's available when you go to the off-road plus mode. In the off-road mode, the vehicle would go up from the air suspension. At the moment we do not need that. We are just fine with the normal ground clearance, which is about 20 centimeters, and we could all the way go up to 30 centimeters in the highest off-road mode, or if I use the setting here in the middle console as well. But here, since we are also a little bit faster here, this is not the steepest off-road course. We'll also do some other obstacles very soon, but here so far it's always a little bit more interesting on camera to show you that. And it is, of course, a rough surface, but the good thing is when you have a vehicle with air suspension and drive it off-road, you can somewhat drive off-road in a comfortable way. You know that the Mercedes G-Class is more capable off-road and can do more things probably than this car, but since it doesn't have an air suspension, it's also a little bit rougher to drive it off-road. So I also experienced that last time was in Utah with the Land Rover Discovery, also has the air suspension, and you were sometimes even wondering how comfortable it is still when driving off-road. And what this new suspension technology does is also making it quite easy for unexperienced off-road drivers to drive off-road. So that's also something you can profit from. Not too many people will take this car here to hard off-road situations, but if you think about some driveways up to your house, for example, and you live somewhere in the countryside, that would make sense. For example, something like this here. And again, I'm not too slow here actually. I can keep a very good control of the vehicle. And also what I felt when driving on the street, it feels a little bit smaller, feels more agile than it actually is from the exterior dimensions, because of the new suspension and also the good handling here, steering wheel, you don't need much power to steer it, so it's relatively easy to do that. And even if we have some fierce bumps in the road, they don't go all the way through to my spine. Even that, maybe you heard that on camera even, that was quite harsh, but there's no back pain whatsoever. And then I remember some off-road drives in cars without an air suspension, and yeah, that can get a little bit rough then too. So you can have fun off-road, even here going up those serpentine corners. I can also show you here what happens when I go to the off-road mode. So if we go to off-road, it goes a little bit right up. The electronic stability systems are also somewhat adapted then, but you also do lose some comfort because when the suspension is higher, there's also less negative way, so to say. So you will have more comfort if you have the suspension in a more even setting, because you can go up and down then. As for the suspension, here off-road, you would rather put it when you are expecting something which is, you know, needing more ground clearance, and so to say. And you feel that we're driving higher now. Oh, some bigger rocks than here now, go slower. But definitely you immediately feel that it's getting a little bit rougher as for the surface. That looks nice here. So we just go a little bit here on the right side to put a little bit like, hey, shall I pick up some flowers on the left side? Oh, and it might make sense we go back there because we need to let a car pass. So that's probably why Mercedes put that up, this obstacle here. We also have a suspension engineer with us, so oh, and the other guy's filming us now. Let's deactivate its beeper. So now we go backwards. That's really steep.
Yeah,
does that fit?
Steep, yeah.
Wow.
It's steep.
So that's how you'll let other cars pass by. Wow. That's impressive.
Really.
Everyone's starting to sweat now?
It was a little bit less than 35, so I know it's at least capable for 35 degrees. It was about 30.
Okay, so the expert says about something 30 degrees. So that's still, I mean, if you are in the kind of, also if you look from the outside, it looks really, really scary. But you always think about the center of gravity of such a car is always lower than you might expect, and that's the reason why this works. But of course, don't do it at home, kids. And yeah, that was probably the most spectacular letting a car pass by, because here we wouldn't have had so many other chances for that. So now some more uphill. This car also has a hill descent control. By the way, we can go back to the comfort mode to make it a little bit more comfortable again. So the hill descent control is getting activated when you are in the off-road modes, and you can also activate it intentionally, just when you want that. And then you can just let go of the throttle and let the car do the braking. That's also a good thing to have when you have a very, very steep downhill you might face. So, and last but not least, we don't have the chance for that today, but you also have this function, just want to mention that again, when you have, you know, this going up and down from the suspension, so you can get out of loose sand, so to say. That's also a very interesting aspect. Most people won't ever use that, but if you get stuck in sand at some point, at least you have the possibility for that too. Now it gets really exciting once again. 3-liter R6, the 6-cylinder, 367 horsepower, so different engine. And I have to say, this is really surprising because I immediately feel that this one here is the lighter vehicle. So yes, a 6-cylinder is lighter than an 8-cylinder, but I wouldn't have expected that this effect is actually so significant. You immediately feel that it's a lighter vehicle. It's almost like the difference in feeling when you're driving a GLS or a GLE. That's significant it is. So that was really surprising here now to me. It indeed, you know, feels directly like a lighter vehicle. And we'll soon show you also the performance. So of course this one here has less performance, although it's lighter. But then again, it's also, you know, something about driving fun, definitely. And I also intentionally picked this vehicle here now without the e-active body control, just with the normal air suspension. We also have different driving modes here, and I start in comfort. You might remember just from a couple of minutes ago where I did, like, you know, at this slower speed, I did this slalom, and you know, this is like somewhat like in the comfort mode with the other suspension, because they are both the air suspension, just at the base, you know, the base is the same, and the other one then has this additional system on top of that. So when you have those waves, you know, they are a little bit more evened out, but when you go left and right, this is somewhat the same. There you just have the difference that this curve function leans the car inside. Yeah, that is a very cool and fancy function, and we really went in depth on that. However, I have to say, the special thing here about the GLS and also GLE is that it still has a very soft and nice and comfortable air suspension. Oh, there's a small... Oh, okay. I'm not sure who those are here, those very small ones. Oh, so sweet. So let's check. Does he or she say where it is?
That's the prairie dog.
Prairie dog, Holger says.
That's away.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So always watch out for the animals. So that's why we're going slow here, and soon we'll go a little bit faster than on the highway. I'll also show you the acceleration. So the curve function, very cool, yes. But the main thing for me would be here to have the soft air suspension right. And then I'm not really sure if I would pay the extra price for the e-active body control. You do not necessarily need it. And also this curve function, I mean, sometimes it doesn't give you a very natural driving feeling. And I also felt that, yes, the car keeps straighter somewhat, but a very comfortable air carpet-alike ride to me is also consisting that the car is, you know, giving you this exact feeling. And I sometimes had the impression that this e-active body control made things more agile, so to say better, but also at some points a little bit rougher. That's my, you know, very personal experience. So very interesting. So if you are, you know, very prone to new technologies and have a lot of money to spend on it, you can go for the e-active body control optional. Other than that, you'll also be just fine with the air suspension. And I always rather give advice to keep the vehicle base and just go for the options you really need, because the manufacturers also earn massive amounts of money with those extra options then, and we want always to give you the best price performance deal, you know. We don't want to give the best price to the manufacturers. So we're here for you, not for the manufacturers. And you know, the setup here, as we have it, with the 6-cylinder, which feels lighter in driving, then also here with the Artico seats, and also with the base air suspension. So this vehicle here will be significantly cheaper than the vehicle we have just driven. Is that a bird now? Yeah, it could fly away. So significantly cheaper this test vehicle than the other one, the 580 GLS we drove earlier. And I would definitely recommend you to go for this one as we have it here right now, because it's just a definitely better price performance deal. And you know, I really like that. And at the same time, this car here does feel somewhat more agile and lighter just because of the reduced weight. Definitely a very interesting aspect. Let's see how that plays out when we go on the highway now. Still get this, you know, this very upright and comfortable seating position. Oh wow, just realized, guys, that's amazing. We hardly ever had that. I think it's just, yeah, just Tesla is offering that. You have here leatherette seats with the seat cooling. Well done, Mercedes. That's amazing. So very rarely do we find that. So because usually a seat cooling is always combined with the most expensive, even not for all animal skin seats, but combined with the most expensive animal skin options. So then you can sometimes only go for the seat cooling when you have like a 6,000 or 7,000 euro top trim seating option, and here you already get it with the Autogefuehl, and yeah, that really lights up the drive when it's hot. Not too hot today, so I don't need it at the full level, but really good that they offer that. My dream would also be, and a lot of you guys also agreed to that, so when you're living in very, very hot climates, then you would obviously always go for fabric seats because they stay coolest in summer. I think this one you had, Augmented Reality again function. And if there would be someone who combines fabric seats with the seat cooling, that would be the coolest option, definitely. Now, let's go to the sports mode. The sound is actually quite decent. There's not too big difference here from the V8 to the 6-cylinder, I think, because both are so well insulated from the cabin, definitely. And here we can do some 30 miles per hour to some 60 or something, 65, let's see, and let's hammer it. Well, that was actually 30 miles to 70 miles. Also quite decent. Yeah, I mean, the V8 gave us a bigger push from the standstill, so to say, or from the lower speed to the higher speed. Bigger push, definitely, but this was also reasonably quick. And the sound was not too different, I felt, at least. What do you think? You know, how did you catch it up on camera? Holger, your verdict, sound and acceleration, 8 versus 6-cylinder?
I think the 8-cylinder has more power, more acceleration.
Yeah, I mean, did you feel that it was like really significant or just a little bit?
I think it's not so big.
Okay, so I think as a co-driver, it's always important to say, because there you feel the G-force also a little bit different, you know. And what about the sound? Would you say sound in the interior?
It's much more silent.
So you say,
yeah.
okay, so more silent than the 6-cylinder here. Holger has also been filming on the exterior, of course. So how did you rate it from the exterior when you were like, I was passing you in sports mode, hit the throttle, difference, 8-cylinder, 6-cylinder? What you heard from the outside when you were filming?
So it's not so many differences.
Okay, so he said also not. So sometimes we have big difference between the 8 and 6-cylinder in sound, but here it doesn't seem to be too big actually. Here now also what we do right here. I mean, we went first downhill, then had that acceleration. That's not super representative for the fuel consumption. So I'll reset it now, and we do some highway driving here, set the cruise control. It's also a little bit different steering wheel we have here, by the way. You might have realized that. So cruise control, and let's see how that one plays out very soon. You might remember with the V8, depending on situations, we had something between 19 and 22 mpg in the end, which is normal for a big V8 and this huge vehicle. That is something 11 to 13 liters on 100 kilometers. The BMW X7 was even a little bit worse in fuel consumption, somewhat in the same region, but a little bit more than in the fuel consumption still. And with the X7, we had the experience that there was a massive difference in fuel consumption between the 8-cylinder and the 6-cylinder. 6-cylinder was like 2 or 3 liters less on 100 kilometers, so like a difference 22 versus 26 mpg, something like that, or even more. And I'm really looking forward now how that one plays out here for 8-cylinder versus 6-cylinder, because that again, you know, might be reason also to go for this one. They both have the new mild hybrid system, and yeah, what about that? We can go for that, for example, in the eco mode. And in the eco mode, the thing is then that this electric mild hybrid system is used even more. And when I, for example, going off the throttle, or where there is a situation where you don't really need much acceleration, then this so-called sailing function or coasting is activated. Let's see, there it is. So here now, the RPM, not sure if you can see it on camera, the RPM dropped to 0. So that means the engine is not running at all. Now it's picking up again. I also activate the cruise control. But this is a so-called sailing or coasting function, so the engine is like a start-stop function, but while driving. And this can also save a lot of fuel, especially when you're like just running straight, don't need any acceleration, or running slightly downhill, for example. So this is also a very interesting function, and if you want to use it more often, then you would go to the eco mode. So far, very positive impression here from the 6-cylinder. I just need to drive it a little bit longer now that it can give you a final statement about the average fuel consumption and also what difference it has to the V8. But from the most aspects we covered yet, I really can say so far I think the 6-cylinder is way to go, although the 8-cylinder, I mean, oh, I have a V8. That's always something, you know, legendary, it's marketing, it's image. But I think, you know, the 6-cylinder is always a good compromise too. When you think about what we had as an experience from downsizing in general is not always really useful as for the fuel consumption for the customer. So we quite often had the situation where a 6-cylinder engine, a bigger one, had a better fuel consumption than a 4-cylinder. That happened. But so far we never had a situation where an 8-cylinder had a better fuel consumption than a 6-cylinder. So it seems to be that, you know, especially for when you are at a certain size of vehicles, that 6-cylinder engines are probably the right size of them or the right amount of cylinders. So it's not always eco-friendly to take cylinders away, because when you have a little bit bigger engine, a little bit bigger displacement, you can drive a car at lower RPMs. But at some point, when you then, you know, add this even bigger engine block, also when the V8 also has a bi-turbo, that might also play a role. At some point, then the weight does play a difference, and of course that you can also use all this power. Beautiful landscape view here again in northern Utah. Hope you enjoy that here with us as well. And again, I'll see you very soon when I give you the final statement about the fuel consumption. Well, and now just another look here at the 6-cylinder. It's not all clean as the other one, but it's actually cleaner as for the fuel consumption and as for the ecologic impact, because we had a really good fuel consumption, about 33 mpg now. That's something 8 to 9 liters on 100 kilometers, and that's a massive difference to that V8, where we rather had some 20 mpg, so over 10 mpg difference, or almost 4 liters on 100 kilometers difference to the 8-cylinder. So, as for the fuel consumption, clear win here for the 6-cylinder, and even a wider span than expected. And now to our conclusion for today with the all-new Mercedes GLS. It was definitely a very impressive ride. Exterior styling, I think, is very elegant, although it's quite strong still in the front. I think it works quite well. Just, you know, this rear perspective where the top part is a little bit narrower, the same we found also with the BMW X7. Interior, new build quality, more infotainment, a lot of different very interesting functions, and also different concept as for the captain seats if we, for example, compare it to the BMW X7. In driving, very interesting, a soft air suspension you get, yes, and also this special e-active body control if you want that. Again, as I said, it's not a must-have option, but it's a very interesting technology highlight that you can lean into those corners. But what I also found out, that this is not making the ride softer. So, you know, you're leaning inside, you reduce G-force or so, but when you have the normal air suspension, it is somewhat softer then. In this curve mode, you have to think about that the suspension goes lower in a way, and then also, you know, gets a little bit stiffer. Yeah, you have to think about what's more important to you than this very soft carpet ride or more the agility factor. But very interesting for sure. Well, and then if you compare it to the predecessor, this one here now with a more agile ride in any case, this is one big difference, and of course more infotainment on the inside and even more space because it has become a little bit longer. Same as for the GLE difference. The smaller brother here, just more space in the rear legroom area. This is the crucial difference. And from a driving, well, this one, as it has a quite agile driving, still for a big SUV, not too much difference, but the more cornery it gets, the more difference there will also be in driving GLE versus GLS. And the final question, X7 or GLS? I mean, both have their unique selling points, somewhat to say. I found that the X7 has a little bit more natural driving fun feeling. That's what, a lot of BMWs are also famous for. Probably I would go here with a standard air suspension if you want the softest, more, air carpet ride. This could speak for that. And of course also some design reasons. The captain seats were actually better in the BMW X7 with the cost of not having the possibility to fold them all flat. So if you think about that. Oh, some rear-wheel driven cars also on some wet roads here. Very interesting. Well, we're up here in the mountains now in Utah. Very interesting. So we also had a lot of altitude change with this marvelous landscape here in the background. We say goodbye for you and for us with the Autogefuehl team, Thomas and Holger today. I hope you really enjoyed our episode with all the landscape and all the different car shots. Please give us some feedback and also discuss this vehicle here on Autogefuehl. Tune in next time, and also to the competitor reviews. We'll always link a couple of related reviews in the video description and in the comments. Tune into those, and we see us there.